What fictional character deserves a spin-off the most? Rita, the Full Metal bitch from Edge of Tomorrow. From the hints and guidance she gave Tom in the film, her time loop experience was a lot nastier. Give her a prequel. Karen, the Continental front desk manager from the John Wick series. I picture him going about his day doing simple things with efficiency, diplomacy intact. He lives in a small, yet well-kept apartment, lined with bookshelves, artwork, mostly sculptures, a vast tea collection and a long-haired cat named Styx. Throughout his day-to-day life he does extraordinary things and makes them seem ordinary. He stops a mugging while coming home from work, dispatching the muggers with brutal efficiency. He helps an elderly lady with her parcels, and turns down any offer of reward. He tutors his next-door neighbor, a Latina teen named Jesus, on history. He attends art shows and visits museums. Then, one unfortunate day, he finds out his sister has been killed. He takes leave from the Continental and brings the killer to justice in a manner that would make Jason Bourne, Brian Mills, Robert McCall, Ethan Hunter and even John Wick shudder in disgust. Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Team him up with an annoying ghost sidekick, perhaps Giles after dying of old age? And you have a 10/10 show about the sassy vampire getting pissed off by a ghost. Jimmy Woo. It doesn't even need to be that much about the other superheroes. I just want to see him doing funny Randall Park stuff and some street magic sprinkled in. Gwen from Ben 10, but only from the original continuity. She gets overlooked because of the amount of attention her cousin Ben gets, and we never got to see the full potential of her true power, and she proved to be very badass even without his help. Oogway, Tigress, Shin are the most interesting characters in Kung Fu Panda, and I think they would make for interesting movies if aimed at an older audience. Edit: if Oogway was to get a movie, it should be about the time him and Kai work together. Tigress, I don't really know what the movie should be about, as there is a lot of directions to go. Shan, I don't know what a movie on them could be about, as there is a limited amount of good ideas, but they are an interesting enough character to warrant a movie like the other two. Jerry Gurgich. Sounds ridiculous at first, I know, but do it as a prequel. Young Jerry in Pawnee, how he met Gail. Kid Leslie being interested in government, what the deal is with Lil Sebastian. Tell me you would wanna watch that. Come on, it'd be awesome. Darth Vader. We all know his story, but the biggest baddest villain in the entire galaxy has force-choked a dude and swung a lightsaber once or twice. I'd love to see a dark movie set between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, detailing Vader meticulously tracking down Jedi and slaughtering them. Give us a character to truly fear. Lucius Malfoy. His tale of being a Death Eater, avoiding Azkaban, gaining tremendous wealth and political influence, hosting Voldemort, and then betraying all that for the love of his child. I'd watch that series all day long. Fucking Unbun from Xenoblade Chronicles. Dude's so much a Chad that he wasn't the chosen one and still used the fucking sword anyway. A spin-off about him, Dixon and Mom Kher fighting the Mechon would be the best game I could ask for. Bella Swan's dad. Charlie, a human who discovers that the town doctor is a vampire, and that his best friend is a werewolf. Could he have done so much with that, and instead we got a love story so awful, we memed it for a decade. I really would have liked to see Garak from DS9 with his own show. He was such an interesting character, like House of Cards style politics, plus he was a spy, assassin, and he had a massive crush on Bashir, just a mix of a charming bastard. Bender from Futurama, a spin-off of Superstore that shows Glenn's hardware store and Donna running the warehouse. Probably wouldn't last more than a season, but I think it would be cool. Finally, bring Cher back from Clueless, but now she's a mom with high school-aged kids. Call it Clued In. Darth Vader rated R movie. Remember all the badass Vader scenes in Rogue One? Make a rated R movie out of it. Vader just hunting and killing remaining Jedi. I would give anything for this to happen. John Constantine needs his own damn show. He's usually a side character or a linchpin, but he has so much potential. He's a pansexual harbinger of chaos and snark who has befriended an actual demon and canonically dated King Shark. I would watch any side story of his life. I know the series isn't as liked, but I liked Wan from the core series. He was kinda interesting. He had aspects of all the avatars we've seen so far, with being strong-headed, childlike, cocky, tones of serious responsibility, and later regret. Shorty from Letterkenny could be extra fun if you see his face in the show, but every single other person has their face obscured or are viewed from behind. Damn, I watch so much shows and played so many games, and all I say all day is how I think so-and-so needs a spin-off. Now that I actually need to name someone, I can't think of anyone. I can try though. So off the top of my head, the Goth family, yes, from The Sims. I'd love a spin-off Sims game that focuses on a Bella Lothario Mortimer love square, that takes you through the events of Bella's possible abduction, and then her son, Alexander, has to go back in time and warn his mom of her fate without changing the course of her life too much, because he still has to be born. Each and every butterfly roiled before Star vs. the Forces of Evil, or Peekapoo, also from Star vs. the Forces of Evil. Also, a lot of characters from Avatar should have spin-offs because they're that interesting to me. Azula, Toph, the Kyoshi Warriors, Avatar Kyoshi herself, which she technically had, but not in comic form, Avatar Roku, etc. Chronicles of the Frieza Force, origins of Captain Jianyu, and how he got his current body, how the other guys joined the GF, how Frieza met Zarbon and Dodoria, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz going around murdering innocent people, the origins of Frieza race, Paragus and Broly's mother. My theory is it's Hells, the origin of Vegeta's rivals with Gui. Meowth from the Pokemon anime. I can imagine a situation where Giovanni gets fed up with Jesse and James's incompetence and puts Meowth in charge in an attempt to humiliate them, but then Meowth turns out to actually be really good at his new job and starts rising up through the ranks of Team Rocket, basically using Jesse and James as sidekicks. 1-1 aka Glad One and Sad One, they are best robots in science fiction for decades and show more human emotions than Sorrel actors and have so much more story. Renew Infinity Train Cartoon Network. We know you hear us. Face us, you cowards. Murdoch from The Inheritance Cycle. Both his life before the books, being the son of Morts, and after the series is concluded, he goes into a self-imposed exile due to viewing himself as untrustworthy by the masses, in addition to a sort of penance for what he was forced to do by Galbatorix. We got some info on him post-series in The Fork, The Witch, and The Worm, but a fully fleshed out Murtig book would be cool. I would love an Attack on Titan spin-off, either of the obvious Eldian rebellions on Marley, probably with Grisha or the Owl as the hero, but the better one would be 2,000 years ago, where we see the Eldian Empire attack the rest of the world's countries, if that is how it really happened. Young Indiana Jones. We got a glimpse of his teenage years in The Last Crusade, 1989, and I think a spin-off would serve him justice. Too bad Sean Connery is dead now. He would have played an awesome father. I'm late to this, but there's a really good dramedy buried in the story of Roy from The Office. It could start with his low point after he caused a scene at the bar with Pam and follow his life as he puts the pieces back together, culminating in the wedding we see in the final seasons of The Office. Roy has demons, but watching him struggle to overcome them and make himself better would make for a good emotional core, and it would repaint the story of Pam to show that, while she didn't deserve his outburst at the bar, she wasn't innocent in how she treated him. Of course, seeing Roy's wedding from his perspective would also lead to the culmination of his emotional arc, as he'd be setting up his new life and making peace with the past in the form of inviting Pam to his wedding. Barney Stinson: I have to know if all those girls were really dumb enough to believe him, how he plays up for the gang but then how he really acts, and just him working for the feds out of spite to the guy who stole his XGF plus NPH, or Sue Sylvester as president, featuring Becky, and tons of inappropriate comments, behavior. General Marduk from Star Trek: loads of episodes of him laughing uproariously, making outrageous claims, drinking vast amounts of blood wine, blowing the shit out of everything, hacking people down with his collection of exotic weapons, shouting at everyone, and generally wiping the floor with anyone who crosses him. Also Garak the tailor from the same show. Edit: I love how Worf basically got all his knowledge on how to be a good Klingon from books and stories because he grew up on Earth, so acts like a paragon of how he thinks an honorable Klingon should be. Then most Klingons are actually just venal backstabbing bastards, the same as everyone else. Then he meets Marduk, who's completely different in that he's a shouty madman rather than a stoic warrior, but does actually meet the ideal. So Worf really likes him and they end up working really well together and generally sorting things out the Klingon way, that is violence, threats of violence, shouting, berating people for lacking honor, etc. etc. Zuko: all you really know about Zuko is that he was a Fire Nation boy with an asshole father, a mean sister, and he has no clue where his mother is. Zuko is probably, him or Rhaenyra, my favorite character from both The Last Airbender and Korra, so I definitely want to see more about him. I feel like a show dedicated to just Zuko where each season is a certain age range of his life would be amazing, starting off from his early life up to his death, when. In my opinion, Rico Rodriguez from the Just Cause series, he literally freed countries and overthrew dictators by leading the rebellion. Resistance doesn't need to walk again because of his grappling hook, wingsuit and parachute, and can destroy bases all on his own. Is pretty much the guy you call badass. Okay, this is my first post so I don't know what I'm doing. I am in no way, shape or form perfect, so I work on a farm with my parents due to me not finishing school, not because I didn't want to but more like I couldn't. I have borderline autism and last year after COVID struck it became clear that I wasn't going to make it, so my parents pulled me out and gave me a start in life, and I thank them for that. They did everything to help and I'll always be grateful for that. But me and my father have been fighting a lot the past year. There is always something I messed up and he always yells at me. Just for clarification, my dad didn't have the easiest life, has been through things that are far worse than any tragic backstory I've heard, and due to that he hasn't been the best father but is far from the worst and doesn't abuse physically. He does have anger issues. Combine that and me messing up constantly and you got a pissed off dad 24/7. He yells so often that I've even considered suicide more times than I can count. I want to quit but I'm too scared that I'll sit under a bridge or die due to starvation, and keep in mind I didn't finish school. I'm 19 BTW. I am receiving therapy but that just feels like we're going nowhere, but I'm holding on. Hopefully we can sort it out. My friend has even said it's not right and that it will mess me up in the future. I've tried hard to make him proud but the more he yells the less hope I have, the less effort I put in. I can't go on like this and he can't go neither. I'm sorry if this post is confusing, I have terrible narration skills. Honestly not a fan of the new every good side character gets their own spin-off approach. These days, it just comes across as pandering when the entire premise of the show is it's just a show about this fan-favorite character and it's named after that character, and everything. We don't need Star Trek, Picard, Star Wars, Ender, or Stargate, that one gay in the background. These are characters and stories you could tell as part of something bigger and more meaningful, be it an anthology series like the Clone Wars or an ensemble cast like the classic Star Trek shows. If you don't think it's that bad, here's a dozen other examples that are in development: a Star Trek show focused on Giorgio, and Star Wars shows for Boba, Ahsoka, Kara, Obi-Wan, and Lando all individually. Meanwhile, SpongeBob also has spin-offs planned for both Patrick and Squidward, so not even kids' shows are safe from the scattershot approach. They're watering down this stuff by splitting up all these characters into their own corners to tell stories solely focused on them, even though a lot of their strengths came from the groups they were a part of. Crow Enan from Hellboy. In the movies he is simply an immortal Nazi scientist that works for Rasputin, but he actually has such a complex history and lore, and it's just not possible to fit all the details in unless he gets his own movie. After writing The Watchmen, Warren Gibbons planned on doing standalone titles for Rorschach and the Comedian. I know technically these got published recently, but I would have liked to have heard their version had they not fallen out with DC over merchandising and the like. One of the books in John Scalzi's Old Man's War universe, The Human Division, has a short story called The Dog King. In that short story, there's a gardener. He's unnamed and is only present for a scene or two. I don't know how to describe why I like him. He's snarky and sensible, but yeah, him. Darth Revan from Star Wars, and every other ancient Sith, like Darth Bane, Darth Nihilus, Darth Vitiate, Naga Sato, and of course the most important of them all, Darth Plagueis. He is such an important character, and I and probably most other people would love a short or long series about him as Master Darth Tenebrous and Palpatine's youth. How good would it be to see a spin-off of The Mummy, 1999, where Eve's brother Jonathan goes on his own adventure, but leaning a little more into the horror genre. He could encounter classic Universal monsters, and even some Lovecraftian horrors. Regular size Rudy on Bob's Burgers. He's my favorite side character on the show. I love the episodes where he's featured, and would love a whole show with him in it. More Rudy. The next episode is titled Bridge Over Troubled Rudy. I can't wait. It's already happening, albeit slowly, but Hornet from Hollow Knight. Hollow game centered around the creation of Hollownest, and the Hollow Knight becoming the perfect vessel would be awesome. There's so much that could be done with the world of Hollow Knight, and sadly a lot probs won't be explored in depth. Would love to know more about Yoda. Dude lived for like 900 years and there's hardly any background on him aside from his later achievements. Maybe they're just scared of messing his character up by eliminating the mysterious of his life, which I guess is understandable. Still would love to see something about him in his prime. Doesn't necessarily have to be an origin story. Bobby Hill from King of the Hill as an adult with his own family in present day, especially if they made him Democrat and a pot smoker. The dynamic between him and an old Hank Hill in some episodes when he visits Texas or Hank visits New York City suburbs. Bobby constantly mentions how he likes New York. Hank also is actually a New Yorker. Would be great and have so much depth. Guinan from Star Trek. They set up some really deep things in the series, especially Q's fear of her. The growing explanation is that the Nexus caused her to something, but that feels flimsy and contrived. I feel like she has had a lot of interesting adventures. The Marauders from Harry Potter. There was so much potential there. four friends from completely different backgrounds become brothers until one of them betrays the others and the rest die tragic deaths. It would have been hilarious but gut-wrenching at the same time. Moriarty from Sherlock BBC, fascinating character, wonderfully acted by Andrew Scott, and there's so much to be done with him. 3 5-episode series, each being 1 hour or so long, although the beauty of Sherlock BBC Moriarty is that he's only in a few episodes.